Hey, Carrie, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me today. So my name is Claire, for those of us, for those that are watching and who are not aware of who we are. I am one of the practitioners at Mind and Body. In the conversation with you, Carrie, about your diagnosis. So we're going to talk more about it, and we're going to find out more about how it impacts you. So yeah, go for it. Introduce yourself.
Hi, so as Claire says, my name's Carrie. I am one of the 18 to 25 practitioners here at Mind and Body. I have been diagnosed with BPD. May is BPD Awareness Month, and I really thought it would be helpful to take this time and space to be able to talk about my journey in the hope that it might be able to help somebody else, hopefully.
Comes with a lot of challenges, doesn't it?
It does. And I think so before I started working at Mind and Body, I was trained as a peer support worker, which is basically means that I learned how to take my experiences with BPD to be able to help support others. So with coming from a background from this, it made it a lot easier for me to be able to talk about my own personal experiences, but at the same time be able to draw on them where appropriate to be able to help support others.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
When did you get your own diagnosis?
I was diagnosed at 23 years old, but it very much looked like I've been probably struggling with BPD since I was about 15 years old.
Oh wow.
Roughly. So, oh no, I've realised I've got that wrong now. I was diagnosed at 25. I got diagnosed with anxiety and depression at 23, which was a misdiagnosis, and then I was re-diagnosed at 25 with BPD. So that would have been, in theory, 10 years without support with my BPD.
That must have been absolutely terrifying for you at the time, not knowing, because having heard some of the symptoms and the experiences and just the challenges that you faced on a daily basis, it sounded really tough.
Truthfully, there's a lot of time periods that I have very little recollection of. There's a lot of things that I don't remember or recall very well. I'm assuming that's some sort of coping mechanism that I have, but yeah, there's a lot of time and space that people can recall, and I really don't have much memory of, minus the fact of how it made me feel, which wasn't great, to say the least. It wasn't great. I struggled a lot for a very, very long time with suicidal thoughts for probably about the age of 15 to probably about, I guess, 25, truth be told. I had a very strong sense that I didn't deserve to be alive, and I shouldn't be alive, and that I was weak for not acted. I was weak because I couldn't seem to end my life, and that made me a bad person, which kind of then led to me thinking that I didn't deserve to be alive. So it was kind of like a really horrible spiral for me, and led me down some pretty dark places. And yeah, so there's a lot of things that I don't remember too much of, truth be told. But we will, like I said, in a little bit, we'll talk about unhelpful behaviours with regards to BPD, and I can kind of go into a little bit more about how that kind of affected me personally. But there's lots of people kind of react to this in their own way, and very much with BPD, when you kind of look at it from like an official diagnosis point of view, there's a criteria of 9, and you have to meet 5 out of the 9 points. So you can have 2 people with BPD showing in 2 very different ways, but still both having the same diagnosis. So yeah, there's a big scope, so to speak.
So before you got the diagnosis, or your official diagnosis, when you were 25, did you start having suspicions, or had anybody mentioned BPD to you beforehand?
So the reason why I came across BPD when I was 25 is I was working in mental health. I was administrator, and basically I would go to something called MDTs, which is multiple discipline team meetings. I think that's what that stands for. So basically the clinical staff would talk about the assessments they had for the week, and me as an administrator, I would take notes about who's been taken on, who needs to be sent like letters to say they've been taken on, and that sort of thing. And they would talk about the cases. As I was listening and making notes, I started to realize that I was drawing a lot of parallels with people with BPD. And I hadn't really heard at the time too much about BPD. And what I had heard was petrifying, in the essence of BPD was dangerous. If you're BPD, you were dangerous and you were unstable. And that was my only thought of what I knew about BPD at the time. So what I done was, once I kind of started drawing these parallels, is I done some research. I went on to Google and onto the Mind website, and they have this amazing explanation about what BPD is and how it all works. And then where I was working for like a mental health support, there was resources that I had at work with regards to information. I looked at the NICE guidelines, which is the criteria that's done to kind of like manage them sort of things. So when I went to when I kind of wanted to look at referring myself, I kind of had all this like ammunition, so to speak, to kind of go, this is why I think this is what I feel like I meet, this. And to be fair, I got quite lucky with getting my diagnosis because I didn't have to fight too much. Whereas I am fully aware that there are lots of other people, lots of people that I have worked with who have had to fight and stand their ground to even being considered for a diagnosis. So in that aspect, I was very, very lucky, and I don't take that for granted whatsoever.
Wow, that's I can't imagine being in the shoes of somebody who is terrified about what's happening to them and is having to argue their point with the professionals, like trying to get that diagnosis. So it sounds like you were fortunate enough to be in such a unique position where you had a fair idea of what was going on, and you documented a lot of your experiences, hadn't you? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like I said, I'd made notes and sort of thing, and just used, I was like, I used what I had done, but my main thing was definitely the Mind website with their explanation and their information. I found that really, really helpful for when I was looking at getting my diagnosis, about the points of what I felt I met. And it just, for me, it helped me get my point across. All that I support with BPD have not had that experience, and which is such a shame that, as you said, you have to fight to get support for something that you really shouldn't have to fight for.
So we will link up the Mind website in the it's not the show notes because we're not doing a podcast, but we'll link up the Mind website so people can actually get that information for themselves and have a little look through. Now, I think the last time we did this conversation, I think it was spoken about as EUPD, but it's also known as BPD, and it's got emotional dysregulation disorder. There's quite a few names kind of associated with this, isn't there? Can you cast any light on that at all?
Of course. So there's two names. So there's BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, and EUPD, which is emotional unstable personality disorder. There is then emotional dysregulation disorder, which is part of the BPD, EUPD, but can also be part of other conditions with regards to regulating emotions. But the main two names are BPD and EUPD. I, on a personal note, think both names are awful. To me, it just makes me feel like I'm crazy. So, but when I'm talking about it, I refer to it as BPD. That's just the one that I've decided to go with. But like I said, different people will refer to it in different ways, but I don't like saying the full name out because borderline personality disorder just to me makes me feel like I'm crazy.
Are there stigmas attached to Like, do people know them as all the same thing, or are they widely misunderstood?
I think, and it's just I think they're widely misunderstood, because I know when I talk to people when they're coming for assessments, and they say, oh, I've got BPD, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the same. They're not even, no one's really said to them, they said one thing, but maybe not the other. They've been told I've got this and I've got that, and I'm like, well, they're kind of like the same thing, and they're like, no one's ever told me that before. So there's definitely a lot of confusion around which one it is, and with it having both similar names. So that doesn't help. But with regards to stigma in general, there is a huge stigma around BPD. It's what's known as, it comes under the category as a complex mental health condition. And very much so, especially if you kind of look at like TV shows and that sort of thing, it's always the murderer who's got BPD, or the person that's gone and, like, you know, attacked somebody. They're unstable, they're unhinged, there's something wrong with them, they've got BPD, they're dangerous, they're scary, stay away from them. And truth be told, before, that was kind of my viewpoint on BPD, is it was scary. It was something to be like, you don't want to be around people like that because they're going to hurt you. And that was all the information that I had ever had on it. And like I said, it wasn't until I started educating myself that I realized that's not the case. Like, BPD for some people is just, it's a day-to-day struggle of just trying to keep yourself alive for some people, or just trying to find value within yourself and see that you matter, and keeping that, because it's so hard to keep that thought and feeling of that I matter, that I'm worthy of something, that I have worth. So, and like I said, yeah, for a lot of people, it can lead to a lot of other things. Say, like, also we're going to talk about unhelpful behaviours in a little bit, but there's lots of different things that people do to help cope with, or trying to help validate how they're feeling. But yeah, just having BPD doesn't make you dangerous. It just means you have BPD.
Yeah.
And that's it, really.
Yeah. And what are the treatment options, or what are the therapies that support a diagnosis like that?
So for BPD, so as part of the NICE guidelines, there is no recommended medication for BPD. So there are ways that you can treat symptoms of BPD. For example, you could maybe treat the symptoms of anxiety, or maybe to help support with the negative thinking, like negative thoughts, but there is no recommended medication. BPD, it should be treated with therapy. So that can be something called DBT, which is dialectical behavioural therapy. Then there's MBT, which off the top of my head right now, I can't remember what it stands for. It can also be helped with things like peer support. So it's that element of having other people come together who've also had similar experiences with BPD, and kind of sharing that knowledge and that information to kind of learn from each other. Also very much for some people, mindfulness can be really helpful in grounding a person and kind of helping them to assess things. But mindfulness, not everybody's a fan of. There's some people like, some people things that don't like, but from my understanding as a rule, it's very much DBT or MBT, or you can go, which is what I done, which is just one-to-one counselling. That's kind of support that I kind of got that helped me. So yeah.
I remember you talking to me before about the age in which people are diagnosed, because it's something that's generally avoided in younger years. Is that right?
Yeah. From my understanding, as a rule, the majority of times they'd like you to be over the age of 18 for a diagnosis. I have worked with a very small handful of 17-year-olds, but as a rule, and yet again, this is my understanding, as a rule, due to things like puberty and changes in behaviours and that sort of thing in adolescence, they wouldn't formally look at giving a diagnosis until you're 18 plus.
Okay. And what kind of impact does it have on your relationships?
Relationships are hard. They are very, very hard. When you don't trust yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it's very, very hard to trust others and trust what they're saying. And you kind of get into something a bit like I guess almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, in the essence of you expect someone to let you down, you treat them as if they're gonna let you down, then they let you down, then you go, well, look, they let me down. My relationships were not the most stable of relationships. So when looking at in regards to partners, my relationships were not volatile, but they definitely were not stable. It was very quick validation.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the time there was a lot of self-loathing and not liking myself for my behaviors or how I acted. I unfortunately I would push people away that were good to me, that were kind to me. I'd push them away because I couldn't understand why they were being so nice to me. The destructiveness made more sense to me than the positives, and my destructiveness within relationships did end relationships with people who I was close to, and that's kind of some of the things that I've had to live with, because there's probably, I'd imagine, quite a few people that I either let down or upset at some point. And the time, going back to my early 20s, I didn't realize, I had no idea why I was doing what I was doing. I just thought I was a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky enough that I have some very, very good and strong friends who have been with me for a very long time and have seen me through thick and thin and haven't gone anywhere at all, and they know me for exactly who I am. But I think it'd even be fair to say that I probably sent them through some up and downs as well. So yeah, relationships are hard. I'm lucky enough I've got my current partner now. I've been with him for 8 years, but especially even with him in the beginning, I pushed him and I pushed him, and I kept on doing it. I kept on trying to, every single thing, if he didn't text me back within 5 seconds, it was because something was wrong. He didn't like me. I was doing something wrong. And yeah, I don't know how he stuck it out, but he did, because he just kept on telling me that he wanted to be with me. And I think maybe probably about a year in, I finally started to believe him, because he hadn't gone anywhere, and I put him through a load of crap and he was still there.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't going anywhere, and he was like, I want to be here, I love you. And I think, yeah, it probably took about a year for that to really finally get into my head.
Wow.
But it took a while.
And you got your happily ever after, though. You're about to get married, which is
Yes,
amazing.
I'm due to get married, so that's really, really, really lovely, and I'm so very, very, very looking forward to getting to stand up in front of all my friends and family and say how much I love my behalf and how important he is to me. So no, yeah, and it took, yes, like I said, it's, when I think back to how I have been in relationships, it puts a big smile on my face that I have found somebody who takes me for everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And like, even now, like I said, I've been with him quite a long time. There are still times now where I might be a bit self-destructive. He said something and I take the wrong end of the stick of it, and I just kind of, in my head, I end up blowing it up to this great big thing, which it isn't, but in my head it's become this thing. And he'll just kind of, we'll talk, and he'll kind of like, we'll just have this conversation and talk it through. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I guess I'm really lucky that we're able to do that, and that he can see when I'm dipping. And he'll come give me a hug, he'll make me a cup of tea, he'll get me some flowers from work, just little things that he'll do that just make me feel valued and that I matter, which is, it helps a lot.
Yeah. And I bet your younger self would probably never have believed that you'd be where you are now.
No. My if we're being very truthful, my younger self wouldn't have believed I'd be alive.
Okay. That
I wouldn't have. Though I'd always dreamed of being where I am right now, I didn't think it was ever going to happen. Mm-hmm. I just didn't see myself living. I was existing, but I wasn't living, and I wasn't 100% sure how long I'd be carrying on existing. I just kind of woke up, and the day ended, and I woke up again, and the day ended, and yeah, I just went through this. Yeah, just keep on kind of going that, and just seeing if I kept on waking up the next day. Yeah.
Can you tell us more about those unhelpful behaviours that you experienced, during the worst of your times, I suppose?
So for me, it was drinking. I drank a lot to cope, because I didn't feel that I had any worth. I didn't feel like I mattered. I didn't feel like I had any importance. So drinking kind of numbed that. It stopped me kind of feeling that, and also gave me confidence. I felt confidence. I felt that I could kind of go out and I'd like flirt with people and that sort of thing, and that gave me validation. Short validation, but it made me feel good. So drinking was a big one for me. Spending money was a huge problem. Unfortunately, I did get myself into debt. I got myself out of debt. I did put myself into debt. I would spend money when I felt sad, when I felt low, just to feel something. I'd buy the handbag, I'd get the shoes, because I could, and because I wanted to, because I didn't feel like I had control in everything else, but I could decide that I wanted to do that, so I done it. Mm-hmm. So spending was a big one for me. And the other one is food. Food is a huge one, and to be fair, it's still a struggle for me, is eating. I eat when I'm sad, when I'm lonely. I eat because it's the only thing sometimes I feel like I have any control over, is what I put in my body, and I want to put in the stuff that makes me feel good. So that's what I do. And it kind of, especially with food, leads to that unhelpful coping mechanism of, and we kind of address this a little bit when we talk about mind and body, about you do the unhelpful coping mechanism, you feel a sense of relief for a short spent of time, and then you feel guilt, and then you feel bad again. And I used to get very, very trapped in that cycle of feeling like rubbish and then eating because I felt like rubbish. And it's like I said, it is something that's probably the only unhelpful behavior I have that I still struggle with. And I just go through stages of being in control of it, and then other stages where I just don't know what's going on, and I feel like I'm failing at it. But it's for me, that one's a work in progress. I think it's always going to be a work in progress, but I just keep on trying. It's the only thing I can do is just keep on trying to better myself, I guess. It's the only thing that I can do.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the symptoms that you experience, what are the ones that you experience now? So you've got your diagnosis, you're living with it, you're maintaining your well-being, you're functioning at work, everything's going well for you, you're getting married. But what are the things that you still struggle with? Assuming that there are, even though a diagnosis doesn't take away the problem and there's no medication to medicate the problem. So what are the things that you're dealing with?
For me, it's the negative thinking. It's the negative thoughts that I have. Those are my hardest ones. I have thoughts saying that I'm not good enough, that I'm going to fail, that I have thoughts sometimes that I don't deserve to be here. Mm-hmm. And they're all these thoughts, especially the thoughts of not wanting to be here, they're fleeting. They come and go as quickly as they come, and with them ones I manage them. I know that it's a thought and it has no meaning to it. Whereas the other ones, in regards to not feeling good enough, those are the ones I struggle with. And sometimes I still ruminate on them. Sometimes I do sit with them, even though I know they're not helpful. But sometimes I don't feel like I deserve enough to be able to want to help myself. And that's when I need others around me to help remind me that I am worth helping.
If you had a young person come up and they went to an assessment with you, for example, and they were talking about their experiences, and they said, I think I've been hearing about this BPD, I think I've got it. What advice would you give to a young person now?
My advice is go to the Mind website, and I say it to the people that I support. If they go, well, someone said it to me, I'm not really sure, go to the Mind website, have a read through, think about it, and just kind of like see, is that something that makes sense? And then go to your GP, say that you've had a look through, you think it could be something, and that you feel like it's something you want support with, and from there they can then refer you on to your local community mental health team, who will then be able to support you in getting an assessment and then getting support.
What's the timeline for you getting that assessment?
It took me 2 years.
Okay, so it's quite a long process. And that's never quick though, is it?
No, it took me 2 years from wait a sec, it may take me a little bit longer than that. It took me 3 years. It took me 3 years from diagnosis, and in the end, to support me, I had to go private. Because I didn't feel like I could keep myself safe anymore. And unfortunately, I went the way you're meant to do. I was kind of saying I'm struggling, and nothing was kind of happening. So I went private, and I sought support from private counselling. I was still on the waiting list for support, but I had to have something in that interim to support me and just to kind of get me back on track, just to help keep myself safe, because I didn't think I could do it on my own. So yeah, I did have a little bit of support in that interim before I got my support with the NHS, but I'm aware at the same time that not a lot of people have access to that, and it's not as, for some people it's not that easy.
Are there any little practical tips you could give to somebody, like perhaps tracking their experiences, writing things down, and being able to evidence it?
Yeah, so I would always say, for me, when it comes to like managing my emotions, I would kind of keep track. There's an app called How We Feel, which is a really helpful one about, like, it'll ask you how you're feeling, it helps breaks it down, but then you can write a little note about what happened. So it's kind of an easy way to kind of notice what was making me like angry or frustrated or sad, and I could kind of keep a track that way. Another thing for me was just writing things down in general. Say writing is more like scribbling things down in general, just anything at all that I could just kind of take what was kind of going on here and just putting it out somewhere. So I just wrote a load of random stuff on paper. I found that really helpful. Another thing that for me was helpful was talking. So as I said, I've got my partner was really good at listening, my dad was really good at listening, and my friends were really good at listening. But to start with, it was a real struggle to open up to them, because I felt like I was being a burden. I felt like I was putting things on them that was going to cause them harm and upset and make them feel bad. And I didn't want them to feel bad. So I used services like Shout and Samaritans when I needed someone to talk to, because I didn't have anywhere else to go, and I knew I needed to talk to somebody or my head was going to explode. So I accessed them, and they helped as well for me to see that it was okay to talk to family and friends, and that they did want to support me, and I wasn't going to hurt or damage them or break them by kind of being honest and open. That's not to say that some of the things I had in the system wasn't distressing, but they didn't react the way I thought they were going to react. They didn't see me as like this crazy person that needs to be locked up. They saw me as me and somebody who needed the support, and that's what they gave me.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience, Carrie. It's just on it, the way you talk about it, you're so knowledgeable, you're so honest, you're so open. It's really lovely to hear you talk about your experience. Now I have a few questions for you that have been put forward by some of the members of our team. So let me just read them off the screen here. So as professionals, we often focus on the support needs of someone's diagnosis, which then steers to the more negative side of things. What, if any, would you say are the positives, benefits, or the lighter side of having a BPD diagnosis?
So for me, one of the positive things that came out for my BPD is my compassion and empathy. For me, both professional and in working, I feel I'm able just to be an ear to somebody, just to listen and to take what they're saying, and not necessarily have to fix it or give answers, but just to be able to help hold that space for them, because I know how important it was for when I needed it. So I definitely say compassion and empathy. I think the most positive thing that I've come to realise from BPD and all the work I've done is probably that I deserve to be alive. And that was something I really, really struggled with, and potentially maybe what other people struggle with, but I kind of finally learned that I deserve to be alive, and I can say that, and that's okay.
That's lovely. Thank you for saying that, Carrie. That's really, I mean, I can imagine to somebody who's maybe watching this, who's like, I think this is maybe my problem. And just hearing those words must be so affirming. So what's been your biggest challenge that you faced in accessing support?
So as I kind of spoke about previously, getting the diagnosis was it didn't take too long, but waiting for support was probably my biggest, was probably the biggest struggle there. Yeah, it was just actually it was very much getting to start the support was probably my biggest challenge, and that I had to look elsewhere for support in the interim, because it wasn't coming from where I needed it to. So I guess for me, I looked into things like podcasts. I found them quite helpful. There's quite a lot on just managing anxiety, low mood, and I found them really helpful. Things like different support apps in managing my anxiety was really helpful. There's an app called Tapping Solution, which is something that at the time when I really needed it, it was really, really helpful. It's a bit of mindfulness, but it's a way of managing and processing the thoughts that you're having, and I found that really, really helpful. So yeah, for me, it was just trying to find ways of keeping myself here while I was waiting for that support.
Cool.
Did that answer the question, Claire?
Absolutely, 100%. What are the most helpful things that somebody could say or do when you're having a difficult day?
Give me the space to talk.
Okay. And
also knowing that what I'm saying doesn't mean that that person is doing something wrong. I think a lot of the time for me, when I am struggling, I may say things like, oh, I'm really struggling to think of why I'm here, or things like that, because that's the thoughts I'm having at that moment. That doesn't mean to say that I don't love the people around me and I don't want to be there for them. It's just at this very moment in time, this is where my brain's at, and I'm trying to process where my brain is at. So it's very much, people being able to give a space, know that what's being said isn't meant as a way of hurting or harming somebody else. For me, personally, hugs are really helpful. Just having someone to like hold me was another good thing. And distractions. So whether that be putting on a TV show that I like that's funny, making me a cup of tea, showing me a really cute cat video, just anything that would take my mind off of, which, to be fair, wasn't easy. But yeah, there would be some times where maybe my partner could show me something really, really funny and it would get me laughing for a little bit. But yeah, I think the biggest one for me was just having that space, in that non-judgmental space, to be able to get everything out.
Cool. And what have you learned most about yourself that you'd like to share with others?
That I'm stronger than what I think I am. I think that's probably one of the things that I learned, that I'm learning that I have value. That's a work in progress, but I'm beginning to see that I do have value and I do have worth. But yeah, just that I am a lot stronger than I think I am, and I'm a lot more capable than I think I am, and that sometimes I just have to trust in me. So yeah.
Really great insight, Carrie. And what messages of advice or support could you give to a parent or a carer who's worried about their young person at the moment?
It's listen without being judgmental. It's don't take things personally, because it's going to feel like sometimes that, oh, I'm a bad parent, I've done something wrong, and that's not the case. This is just what they're feeling is what they're feeling, and even though it may make no sense to you whatsoever, that doesn't mean that what that person is feeling is wrong. That is what they're feeling. So it's supporting them within that, but also at the same time kind of supporting them in the essence of going, right, let's kind of look into what's going on, how can we maybe break these things down, let's look at the pros and cons of what you're saying. But when you kind of break it down to that has to be done very on a case by case thing. You'll know your young person, you'll know your partner well enough to know, right, can we start divulging that? But the main thing is give them that safe space, let them know they're safe and that they're being heard, and what they says matters and has value.
Okay. And finally, the last question we got are, what strengths and or positive qualities has BPD presented in either your personal or professional life?
So as I kind of said before, it's very much for me, it's compassion and empathy. I'm very lucky and fortunate to be in the position I am now, where I get to support people with mental health. And when I'm talking to people in assessments, I hope that the way I respond and the way I react is from the experiences that I've had, and maybe some of the things that I would have liked people to respond to me. So it's for me, it's also allowed me to be more mindful and understanding, and especially in the element of, just because I don't see it that way doesn't mean that it's not right, because that person may see it and I may not understand that, and that's okay. I don't have to understand it. I need to support. So that's probably one of the things I've learned in my personal life. Yeah.
That's amazing, Carrie. So that's answered all the questions. Is there anything that you think that we've maybe missed, or that you wanted to add, just like it's come up in the back of your head as we've been talking?
I think it's just just saying to people and letting people know that it's okay. The way they are feeling is okay. There's nothing wrong with them. You're not crazy. You're not. You're you. And right now, you're you who needs support. And it's okay to be you that needs support. And sometimes it can be hard to find that support, but it is there. Reach out to the GP, reach out to Shout, reach out to Samaritans. Mind and Body, we can help support with like the 13 to 25-year-olds. Reach out to us and we want to help. So yeah.
Lovely, Carrie. That was amazing.
Real good.